This is Optimal Health Daily, episode 648, Eating Dirty Food as a Clean Eater, by Tynan, of Tynan.com. And I'm your host and narrator, Dr. Neil Malik. Happy Wednesday and welcome back to Optimal Health Daily, where I read to you from popular health and fitness blogs, usually, to help you optimize your health. Now, the reason I just said usually a second ago is because today's post is from a writer who's more frequently narrated on my brother's podcast, Optimal Living Daily. Now, the author has a really unique story. He's been a professional gambler, a famous pickup artist, featured as the character Herbal in the popular book The Game, and he was named by Time magazine as one of the top 25 best bloggers in 2013. The same year, he bought an island in Nova Scotia with some friends. In 2008, he sold everything he owned and now lives out of an RV, living a nomadic lifestyle. You can find his blog and more about him at Tynan.com, spelled Tynan. Now, I'm really excited to read his post, but before I get to it, you know what? We're due for an inspirational quote. It's midweek, we may have some post-holiday blues still, so I thought we need some inspiration today. So here we go. Quote, "The road to happiness lies in two simple principles. Find what it is that interests you and that you can do well, and when you find it, put your whole soul into it. Every bit of energy and ambition and natural ability you have." John D. Rockefeller III. Okay, now that you're in that positive frame of mind, we can get to today's post and start optimizing your life. Eating Dirty Food as a Clean Eater, by Tynan, of Tynan.com. I'm sitting outside the Viking Museum in Oslo, Norway. The museum is closed, but the little ice cream stand in the otherwise empty parking lot is still open. I'm on my third ice cream. Eating ice cream in Norway is about as nonsensical as it gets. The ice creams are the kind you find in freezer chests at truck stops. Norway is the most expensive country on the Big Mac Index, and easily the most expensive country I've ever visited. So each ice cream costs around $4 US. It's not really warm here. Oh, and I don't usually eat ice cream. When I travel in new countries for short periods of time, say under a week, I allow myself to eat anything and everything. I do poorly with gray areas, so my diet is either 100% on or 100% off. Although some things like soda and margarine are so offensive that I never eat them. It's usually 100% on, but I recognize that with 2 or 3 days in a country, my time may not be best spent scouting around for a decently healthy restaurant. Also, I'm pragmatic enough to know that a few days of eating crap food probably won't affect my long-term health. What I like most about these quote-unquote cheat days is how predictably they remind me that I like eating healthy. Because of my perceptions before beginning to eat healthy, I imagine that most people would find this hard to believe. I remember exactly what I thought when I realized that certain foods, sugar and flour, needed to be eliminated from my diet. Quote, "I have to do this, but it's going to be a big sacrifice." I was willing to make that sacrifice, but the reality of the situation turned out to be quite different than expected. So for people interested in understanding what it's objectively like to eat healthy, or for those trudging through the acclimatization process, I figured I'd offer a few paragraphs describing what it's actually like. There are sacrifices to be sure, although they aren't what I initially expected. The biggest downside is convenience. Your restaurant options go from roughly every restaurant in the city to less than 5. You usually just can't get a meal on the go. You have to go out of your way. For example, when going skiing, there's no food on the mountain that I can eat. So I have to make sure that I eat before skiing and then drive 10 minutes away from the mountain afterwards to the one healthy restaurant in Tahoe. This isn't normally a big deal, but I'll admit that when pressed for time, I think back to how convenient it was to just grab a burger and keep moving. The other notable downside is that you become an inconvenience to your friends. If they want to eat with you, they have to go out of their way to one of your restaurants. Luckily, these healthy restaurants tend to be good enough that even unhealthy eaters will enjoy them, but you still extend the inconvenience of limited selection to your friends. Enjoyment of food isn't the liability I thought it would be. After my 5 days of eating garbage in Oslo, with the greatly appreciated exception of delicious Arabic food prepared by our friend Noor, we took the train to Stockholm, where Todd found a vegetarian buffet. The best analog for the feeling of eating healthy food after a period of eating dirty is to say that it's like getting into bed after a long day of running around. Just as you don't realize how tired you are until you hit the pillow, You don't realize how much you love healthy food until you take that first bite of spinach lentil soup. Our whole meal of beans, vegetables, and little else was punctuated with us vocalizing how good the food was, almost involuntarily. The first bite of junk food tastes good, even to someone accustomed to healthy food. The second is okay. By the end of the meal, it's a little bit gross, and my stomach feels full in a way that feels natural only if you've never eaten healthily for a significant period of time. Half an hour after the meal, I'm craving more junk food, even though my stomach feels a bit sloshy. I feel tired and usually think to myself, that meal was so dumb. Eating healthy food is different. The first bite is good. So is the second. As the meal progresses, the food continues to taste as good as it did initially. After eating, I'm full, but could still jog without feeling gross. Transforming into a healthy eater isn't a process of self-deprivation or sacrifice, at least in the long term, but rather an acclimatization to a better perspective on food. You can still stomach normal food if you have to, but it no longer takes willpower to stay away from it. All it takes is eating it occasionally. You just listened to the post titled, Eating Dirty Food as a Clean Eater by Tynan of Tynan.com. Dr. Neal here for some of my commentary. Now, it's a known fact that as we get older, our taste buds change. Salt doesn't hit our taste buds as strongly as we get older, and so you'll often see folks beyond the age of 50 or so maybe adding more salt to their foods. And again, it's simply because we're not as sensitive to that taste anymore. Our dehydration signals aren't as strong, and so we often are dehydrated as we get older. But something that I think we need to study a little bit more is this idea of our diets changing our taste buds. So Tynan makes a strong case, anecdotally, meaning in his own experience, of eating quote-unquote clean foods and how that changes how he feels, how the food tastes, how his body responds to eating more clean foods as opposed to some of these more junk foods. In my experience, when I treat patients, they've also said the same thing to me, that once they get off, let's say, sugar for long enough, when they go back to it, things taste almost too sweet. When they follow a vegetarian or a vegan diet for so long, the taste and smell of animal foods actually makes them physically nauseated. Is this all in their heads? Possibly. And that's why I think we need more research to know. But if simply adding more whole, unprocessed foods to your diet makes it less likely that you're going to consume more processed foods, more fast foods, then I would say there's no harm. There's no harm in thinking that maybe your taste buds have changed for the better, that junk food doesn't taste as good anymore. All right, really quickly, before I go, I want to remind you, if you want to show some support for our podcast, there are many ways to help out, both free and otherwise. Come by oldpodcast.com/support to check it out. And that'll do it for another edition of Optimal Health Daily. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.
Hello, Life Optimizer. This is Justin Malik, creator and producer of this show and Optimal Living Daily, the brother podcast of this one. Literally, I'm Dr. Neal's brother. If you like the format of this show, you'll love Optimal Living Daily too, where I also read to you from blogs, but cover other topics like personal development, finance, and minimalism from bloggers like Derek Sivers, The Minimalist, Zen Habits, and many more. So for more amazing content read to you for free, come subscribe to Optimal Living Daily too, and together we'll optimize your life.
You've been listening to Optimal Health Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode, and head to oldpodcast.com. That's oldpodcast.com for a free gift, as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.